Next is step 2, set lighting targets. In this step, we'll choose what light levels we want our fixtures to meet in order to have sufficient light quality. You can see that there's a little bit of intro here, followed by the first input, which is the calculation method. This is the only input on this page that affects the actual calculations of the tool itself, and here we can choose between the two options for which set of assumptions we want to use in the tool. Those provided by the IES standard, that from the Illumination Engineering Society of North America in standard RP8, or those defined by the calculation method of CIE in CIE standard 115. We can choose to select calculations using one method, or we can do calculations with both. In this case, I'll use the IES method. Next, we want to set our targets for how much light we want our fixtures to achieve. This is only used to indicate, after the fixture's light has been calculated, whether each one passes or fails, so you can see both in the results tables as well as in the output graphs those that pass the criteria and those that don't. And you can see also here that we have two separate methods for calculations, illuminance and luminance. Illuminance is the light that hits the surface of the road, while luminance is that which is bounced off the road and then observed by someone that's a fixed distance away. We can choose to enter targets for one method or both methods, but by default, the tool calculates using both methods regardless. In addition, you can see that there's separate inputs for the IES standard assumptions and the CIE standard assumptions on the left and on the right. Again, we can choose whether to enter one or both of those. I'll start by setting my targets for the illuminance method. I'm going to assume that I have a collector road of medium pedestrian conflict, and for that the targets should be 9 lux and a uniformity ratio of 4.0. If I wanted to use the luminance method instead, for my evaluation, I can enter the targets there, which for the same road would be 0.6, 3.5 for the average to minimum uniformity ratio, and 6 for the maximum to minimum uniformity ratio. Because I selected only the calculation method of IES, I don't need to enter inputs onto the right-hand side here for the CIE method. And that's it. Down below, you can read information that's been extracted from each of these two standards. It's important to note, though, that you don't need to use these two standards for setting the light targets. Lots of local and national governments set different standards that are either based on these or completely separate, but that still use the calculations set up by these standards. So in this case, I've used values that correspond to those in RP8 from the IESNA standard, but those could be anything else of my choosing. Let's move on to choosing our fixtures.